sharing how you can take a bullet journal theme and turn it into something more. Hi everybody, welcome to today's video. Today I'm so excited to share this mini tutorial, or tutorial 3 ways, I guess. I decided that as part of my book theme for September, it would be fun to make accessories. So for the accessories, I chose to make bookmarks and to share that with you. For the bookmarks, I have 3 kinds. Super easy, quick, simple. Then using a bit more supplies. So I think this is more intermediate. And then I'm going to call this advanced, not because the techniques are advanced, but rather because there's so much stuff that I use to go into it. A little mixed media bookmark as well. So those are the 3 tutorials that I'm going to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. So standard across the board, I'm going to be using white cardstock, my acrylograph pens, which I used in my setup, my Pigeon Letters monoline drawing pens, my corner cutter, which you've seen before, and then we're going to add stamps, stamp inks, and we're going to also be adding some ribbon as well, but again, those are all optional. We're going to start with basic, some supplies, and then lots of supplies, lots of concepts. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Okay, so first off, we're going to cut our cardstock to size. You can make your bookmarks any size you want. I believe I'm going to make mine about 2 inches, and we're gonna go from there. Okay, so I cut an extra one just in case, because life happens. So let's get started with the easy, simple, ready to go bookmark. I'm going to keep it this length, which is 8.5 inches. That's just the page. I feel like that's long enough for my book, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to grab my pencil and my ruler, and I'm going to start sketching in my bookshelf and my notebooks. So I'm just creating some guidelines on my paper so that I have an idea of how I want things to look. And this is where you just have to trust the process. So I'm just freehand drawing my notebooks. If you prefer straighter lines, definitely go for it, use a ruler. Okay, so there are our books drawn in. We can start coloring that now. If you're using paint or acrylographs too, I like to do the acrylograph painting coloring first before I start adding the details, just so that the acrylograph doesn't go over top of the pen mark from outlining our books. So I'm using a 0.3 brown acrylograph just to kind of speed this up a little bit. Normally when I'm painting larger surfaces, I would use paint, but I have the 3mm and I kind of like the dry effect that it gives. It looks kind of like wood. So I'm just going to stick to using this guy. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to start grabbing our colors and we're going to start coloring. Now I'm going to go with the colors that I used in my theme, which is the blue, red, taupe, cocoa, the gold, the yellow, and the orange. And because that's still drying, we're going to go in from a different angle. So the reason why I love the acrylographs is that they're paint pens and they're super opaque and you can layer on top of colors. So in my main setup, you'll see that I did gold over top of the notebooks and it actually held up really well. So that's why I keep gravitating toward the acrylographs. And because I'm going to call myself a collectionist, I have pretty much all the acrylograph colors, I believe, including the ones in the specialty boxes. It's a privileged flex for sure. But otherwise, yes, I'm not lacking in the acrylograph colors. Okay, now we're going to let this dry for a little bit, and then we're going to go in and start adding the gold accents. And like I said, one of my favorite things about the acrylograph is that you're going to go right over top and add those accents on top of the existing color, and it's going to be fine. Okay, and then what I like to do is I like to go in with a drawing pen. I'm going to be using the size 9 from the Pigeon Letters, and I'm going to go in and add the darker outlines. And I probably will be using a ruler for majority of this. So I went in and removed some of the pencil lines that were still showing, and I went in and I corner punched it with my corner puncher, and now you can either leave it like that or run it through a laminator. I'm going to run it through a laminator, but I'm first going to finish the other bookmarks so that I'm not wasting a full sheet of laminating paper. So I'll show you this one again when it's laminated, but like I said, it's fine to use like this too. So let's get into our second one. For this bookmark, we're going to keep the size and we're going to use stamps instead. So I've already picked the 2 stamps I've used. I'm going to use, it's from the Studio Calico collection. Now this one's unfortunately been discontinued, but this one is currently sold out. Studio Calico does bring back their favorites, so it's definitely sign up for their mailing list. I'm not affiliate, I'm not associated with them at all. I just really love their products. So you can sign up for their newsletter and they'll tell you if they're having a vote to bring back the favorites. So the fact that this one's still on the website says to me that they're going to try and make it available again if enough people want it. So anyways, I digress. I'm going to be using On the Shelf, and then I'm going to be using the Read More Books, and in between I'm going to create little bookshelves, so mini versions of these guys. Okay, so let's get that going. So after all that, I ended up using different stamps than the ones I said I would and actually really like how it turned out. So once I got my stamp set up and more or less centered, I ended up trimming off the sides just so that that top stamp that says page turner would be directly in the middle and kind of fit better. So that's what I was doing there. And then I'm just going in and sketching my shelves for my books like I did before. I keep calling them notebooks because clearly I have a notebook problem, which I will share with you one day. But yeah, whether they're books or notebooks, it's the same idea. It's books on a shelf. So I go in and I color them in with my acrylographs again, just like I did in the first bookmark tutorial. And it's just time waiting for it to dry. Once it's dry, I go in and I add the gold accents and then go in and outline them just to give the books a bit more definition. I tried leaving them, but it didn't quite have that finished look that I wanted. And that was when I was experimenting with my September setup. And so I knew going forward I would be outlining the notebooks. I also went in and added some color to that bottom stamp just to kind of tie it into the books a bit more. I didn't have to do that. I actually didn't like how it ended up, but it's so small and barely noticeable that I just left it as is. Okay, so I'm not going to round the corners since I really think it's sharper without the corners being rounded. And this is, I'm going to call it our level 2 of supplies bookmark. And now we are going to move on to the third and final one. Okay, so this is my cat Millie. She's new to the family. She's a little rescue. I'll see if I can show you her face. She tries to play with my microphone, but she's very squirmy. Anyways, we're gonna move on to our third and final bookmark. This is our more advanced bookmark, if you will. And I've actually decided that I'm going to glue these two pieces together to give it a bit more weight because of the ideas that I have. So I'm going to grab just a glue runner, add glue to both sides, and glue this together. Okay, so for this bookmark, I got out some paper, some craft paper that I bought. This, like I said, I bought this set, which is basically the dictionary. Other things you can do is you can photocopy a dictionary you have. If you don't care, you can tear out a page out of a dictionary as well. You can look online for pictures of old-timey writing, and then you can print that out for your bookmarks. So there's lots of options there for you. We're going to use some distress ink as well, and we're going to distress ink this, and then we will start putting pieces together. Of course, my camera wasn't filming for any of that, but basically what I did was I took my distress ink Oxide and I smeared it all over my glass surface and sprayed some water on it and dipped my bookmark paper into the smudgy mess, and then just played with textures to build up the textures while waiting for it to dry. You take it and then you just swirl it. This was a technique I saw Tim Holts use and I thought it was really cool. So I thought I'd give it a try for the bookmark. He waited longer for his stuff to dry in between, so we'll do that. And then we'll spray it with some more water to build some more texture. Okay, so once dry, we're gonna spray it with water again, and you're going to see the dye ink react again. And then we're just going to tap it down. So again, we're going to let that dry, and then we're gonna come back and start adding more fun details to it. The ink I used is the Distress Oxide Antique Linen. So the next Distress ink Oxide I grabbed was the frayed burlap, and we'll be using that in a second. I just think I'm going to trim this a little bit. It's a little bit too long for what I want. So I think we're gonna take a couple inches off the top. Okay, so we'll start with that. I decided to add a doily. This is a Miss Sparkle Co. This was in their bargain bin at Joann's. I feel like a doily is so old school, to be honest. Let's give it a go. And then for the paper, I'm just going to tear some into a triangle, like so, so that we have the doily there. So I'm actually not going to glue the doily down, I'm just going to glue this piece down. So again, I'm using my tape runner. And then we're just going to trim off where I don't want the doily hanging off the edges. And now you're going to see another reason why I love the acrylographs. We're going to draw our books right over top here. I'm just sketching in where I want my books to go so that I can kind of keep track of where everything is at. We're going to take our acrylographs. I like to start off with the bookshelf, the brown on the bookshelf, just because it gives me somewhere to go. And now we're just going to color in our books. So if you don't have acrylographs, another option would be to do this on a piece of paper and glue it over top. So there's lots of options. You don't have to have the tools I have. Okay, so we're gonna wait for that to dry. And we're going to pick a stamp that we want. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to take some cardstock. I just have cardstock, so we're going to, or take the piece that I messed up cutting earlier. And we're going to take this stamp set. Again, this is from Studio Calico, but unfortunately has been discontinued. But there are lots of variations of reading stamps out there, so any sentiment you can find. Basically what I'm trying to recreate here are those sticker images or the sticker lettering. I know Tim Holtz has them, so we're just recreating that on for ourselves. And I think what we'll do is we're going to stick it in like that. So then we would just need an element over here. And I was thinking of placing this heart, stamping it down and sticking it over there. So that is another option. On the shelf would be another fun one to do that with. Let me see, book club, read more books could be a good one too. But I think we're gonna go for the heart. Okay, so we're just going to again stamp it on a piece of paper, and we're going to cut it out and add it to our bookmark. And we're going to cut it. I don't think I want a white border, but we'll cut it with a small white border just in case we change our minds. Because you can always cut the border off, but you can't add it back on. I'm going to outline, I'm going to switch gears a little bit again. We'll come back to these. I'm going to outline the books. So when drawing over bumpy paper like the doily, for example, the trick is not to push down very hard. So basically just gently hold the pen's tip to the surface, and just so that it's enough to put color down, but not enough to pick up whatever shape is forming underneath it. And so that's why you're not seeing the imprint of the doily, or you're not seeing my lines wobbling, because when it comes to the texture of the doily, I just gently lift my hand so that only the little bit of pen tip is touching the page. Okay, so we're going to glue this guy down, or actually, yeah, we're going to glue this one down. Okay, I'm going to stick that there. And just for fun, what we're going to do is we're going to staple this in place. You can use any stapler you want. I am just using this Tim Holtz mini stapler. This isn't an ad for Tim Holtz, I promise. I just really enjoy the randomness of his products, I swear. Okay, so then, unfortunately I did that. So let's just cut that off there. We're going to round the corners. Yeah, we're just going to round the top corners. And then we're going to grab, let me grab a little bit of washi to cover that up. I'm going to use this book line washi stuff because I think it looks really cool. And we're just going to stick over the back. It still sticks out a little bit, but that's fine. I don't care. That's going to cover that up a little bit. I'm grabbing my crocodile. If you don't have a crocodile, you can just use a single punch. They're a few dollars at Walmart. Failing that, you can just line it up in a regular 3-hole punch with just the 1-hole punch area. Sorry, I can't talk today. I apologize. I'm struggling finding my words. So that's going to be for our ribbon or our twine. I'm actually going to use twine because I think it'll play off nicely. And if you think of old school, when they would put together books, they would use twine to tie it up, and so that would be a kind of nice way to pull it all together. Okay, so this is from a twine set that I bought at Michael's a long time ago, but there were like 6 or 7 different kinds of twine in the set, so really cool. So I'm actually going to cut this in half. You don't want to pull too hard or else you're going to break the hole. And now I found this crocheted lace at the dollar store actually. I think what we'll do is we're going to add a piece of the crocheted lace onto the bottom because I think it would look really cool. So I cut this a little short because I had to trim the edge. So we're going to cut a slightly bigger piece. You have a couple of options. You can sew it in place, or you can staple it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put, we're going to use, I'm sorry that I'm adding more products here, but just going to use the removable adhesive, just a little bit just to keep it in place. And then we're going to fold it over so that it's not too long. Just a little bit for effect. So then what we'll do is we're going to staple this in place. And then we will just, I don't want it to be too bulky, so we're going to cut a little bit off there. And we're going to fold it back in, and we're going to tape it. Just with regular Scotch tape. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just folding in the edges to make sure all the raw edges aren't going to come loose. Like I said, you can sew it and you can put a nice edge along this lace. It's up to you. I don't want to start getting into sewing and all that fun stuff, so we are just using this way. And there you go. Okay, so actually before we finish this up, I never said why we're going to use the, the frayed burlap. So we're going to take that off, and then we're just going to gently kind of roughen up the edges here to give it a more aged antique look. I feel like this is all super old school, but things always come around to being popular again, so who knows. Okay, and then we can pop this guy back in, and there you have your level 3 throw all the supplies at it bookmark. And here are our 3 bookmarks. I obviously didn't laminate this one because of the ribbon, but if you didn't add the ribbon, you still had the option to laminate it. And of course, you can also make this a lot shorter if you wanted to, but this is perfect because it matches our book aesthetic from the setup we did, or at least the setup I did. And as you can see, we got a bit of matching going on in the back there, words that look like they come from a book. And so just fun additions to a monthly setup in your bullet journal that you can use throughout the month, or you can even use it in a book that you're reading. It's really up to you and just for fun too. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorials, and they are up on the blog so that you can also check those out for more information. And like I said, use what you have. If you don't have a lot of these things, it's not a huge deal. This you can print out on paper. This you can recreate using Microsoft Word or Paint even. And you can print it out and cut it out. You can, if you don't have acrylographs, you can draw on a piece of paper, cut it out, stick it on. This lace was from the dollar store, so again, you don't need all the fancy things to make an impact. There are workarounds for it. So if you decide to recreate any of these, I would love to see it. You can tag me on Instagram at Natasha Miller Letters. If you have any questions whatsoever, just feel free to reach out either down below or over on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching today.